Blog Talk Radio.
And boy, am I mortified. We had Robert Winfree. He seems to have disappeared into the ether. Hopefully, he'll be joining us shortly. Who knows? Maybe he's talking. Oh wait. Hey, I'm getting a message. Let's see. What's going on? What do we got? Nope. Nope, that was an email. It had nothing to do with Robert Winfree. All right, so he disappeared on me, and I don't know where he is. Maybe he can't hear me either, and we're talking over each other, and you're getting nonsense. Who knows? But until then, I'm going to assume that my audio is as meh as it normally is, and I'm just going to keep going here. We, as in myself and the missing Robert Winfree, are supposed to be reviewing War for the Planet of the Apes, the third part of the prequel Planet of the Apes trilogy, the previous two being Rise and Dawn. And I had a lot of high hopes for this one. I was very excited about it. I really loved the last one. Rise was kind of, it was fine. It was one of James Franco's better movies, if you could believe it. But I really liked this second movie, and I had a lot of high hopes for the third movie. And I'll go ahead and say now, it's not that I was let down. It was more of, I felt like I was watching, I felt like I was led to believe this was going to be one kind of movie, and it ended up being a different kind of movie. Not really what I was expecting, especially for a summer blockbuster. And that's not to say it's a bad movie. This is what we pick on the professional critics for. Just because it didn't meet my expectations doesn't mean it's a bad movie. That being said, I've had to think a lot about. It's been universally praised for the most part. There's very, very few rotten reviews on. Hello?
Hey, Mark. Sorry about that.
Hey, what happened, buddy?
My internet died about 4 minutes before the show was supposed to start, and because of Blog Talk's random interactions with my internet when it goes out, I have to resort to calling in from a landline until it actually times out my host thing. Then I'm going to have to call back in that way because Comcast and Blog Talk both kind of suck individually and don't get along well at all.
Interesting. Could you hear me at all before I put you on?
When?
Right. Let's try that. Let's try that question again. Could you hear me before I unmuted you?
Yeah, because I called in like once the show was going, and at that point, it functions. But it was just really, really bad timing from my ISP, who has no incentive to actually upgrade or repair anything on a timely fashion.
Okay. You want to tag in here? What I was talking about was I've introduced the movie. I've talked about how it's very different from what I thought it would be. That doesn't make it bad. It just makes it different. It's made me have to go back and think about what did I think of this movie, because I definitely had some mixed feelings about it, and that's going to lead to a clip that I want to play. But you know, I don't want to throw off your rhythm here, such as it is. So you want to shake it off and jump in?
Oh, no, the rhythm's gone. I mean, I'm half expecting my internet to die again here at any minute, so.
Oh, good.
All right.
War for the Planet of the Apes. It's pretty good. Plugs.
No, I mean, kind of dovetailing on what you said before we actually get into, you know, the craft of it. I got about what I was expecting, in all honesty. There were a couple of twists along the way, but as a general rule, this was about what I expected.
I didn't expect it to be as slow or to have as little action as it had. You know, I mean, most of it's The Great Escape, featuring apes and chimpanzees and gorillas, which I was not expecting. And there's really only like 2 real action sequences. The rest of it is, you know, it reminded me. None of these are complaints, by the way. These are observations. It reminded me in a lot of ways of movies that we've talked about that were made in the 70s. You know, it's a lot of faces framed, you know, in thought. Faces, you know, faces in thought. It's a lot of character pieces. You know, there's a lot of focus on Caesar's internal struggles and his relationship with his community of apes and how his decisions have affected them, how his decisions from the last movie and his falling out with Koba have affected the ape community. There's a lot of that. And you have one great scene with Woody Harrelson explaining why he's standing on the edge of sanity and doing what he's doing. But this is by far not an action movie, nor is it a summer blockbuster. It's a movie that happens to have been released in the summer, but I would tell you I think this was released at the wrong time. This should have been released close to Oscar season. There's a lot of great performances here, but this is not exactly the kind of thing that I think stands up against the average Transformers movie or Pirates of the Caribbean or Marvel or DC movie. I just, you know, the last one, sure, absolutely. That ends in a big all-out fucking brawl between the apes and the humans. This one ends with a battle between humans and then God wins. And I'll let you talk about that. But I kind of like watched the way that the movie ends, and I went, all right. It's one way to do it. I don't know. A little unsatisfying in that respect. But again, that's more of maybe a personal thing than a comment about the craft. I want to let you get in here, and then I have a clip about that kind of sums up how I felt about this movie personally. Go ahead.
Well, given what you mentioned about, you know, how the film plays, it shouldn't come as a shock to you that the two major influences for this film in terms of, where the director and the writers were drawing their inspiration from were The Bridge on the River Kwai and, as you mentioned, The Great Escape. There's, of course, some Apocalypse Now thrown in there because why not? And there's a little bit of homage to some of the great Bible epics as well. So they drew a lot of inspiration from thoughtful movies rather than, the flashier, less substance type of things, which is not to say that, I'll spoil some of this. I still think the best of them is the second one, is still Dawn.
Agreed.
And I'll get into specifics when we get to that point, but this is still, I got a lot of what I was expecting, a lot of what I wasn't, but I wasn't blindsided. It was more just a slightly different path than the one I expected to go on. And I'll spoil a little bit of what I have to say later on. I have almost no complaints about this. This was an exceptionally well put together movie. Anyway, go ahead with your thing, and then do you want me to do a plot synopsis, or do we want to just get right into it?
I want to do the show the way we normally do the show, sir.
When Comcast decides not to forget the lube. Go ahead and play your clip. I'm gonna call back in on my other line, and we should be good to go for the rest of the evening.
The host just dropped off.
Yeah, I got that. I'll take care of it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess we should keep. Yeah, that's right. We can go even without the host. But you gotta do a clip for the whole thing.
I can call back in as on the other. Do your thing. I'll be right back. It's kind of the long and the short of that.
You're not going to hear the clip then. All right. Well, he doesn't hear the clip. Let me go ahead and say, once again, for the record, I didn't dislike the movie per se. However, it was a little bit different than Winfree. A lot of the same words, just in different orders. There was a lot that I didn't expect from this movie. I kind of was blindsided. I really thought this would be more violent, more Return of the King. That's what I was expecting. I was expecting the last great human monkey war, and that's not really what this is. So when I was walking out of the movie theater, and it's funny because I saw it, I believe, Friday night, and there were a lot of kids, for a 7:45 show on a Friday night. I saw a lot of kids with families, and I think they were all expecting, a great big explosion-filled action flick, and they got a think piece, and I think a lot of people just sort of left like, huh. And it reminded me of an Eddie Izzard bit, and I'm going to play the bit for you now, because it kind of sums up my overall opinion of the movie. Again, not bad, but I'll let Eddie Izzard explain it.
We've got known in Britain for making the smaller films. Recently we've been pulling out of that into the more train-spotting area, but the smaller films, the kind of, room with a view with a staircase and a pond type movie. Films are very fine acting, but the drama is rather sort of subsumed, or a word like that. Something or other. Just sort of folded in, and everything's people opening doors. What? Well, What is it, Sebastian? I'm arranging matches. Well, I thought I'd better go. Yes, I think you'd better have. Ooh. And you can't eat popcorn to that. You're going... Whereas at the film, did any little bit of business...
All right, so the second part is he's doing it up as the same bit, but Americanized, and it's a lot of cursing and yelling, and there's explosions, and and monkeys show up, coincidentally. And then, he's just shoving popcorn into his mouth. And that's kind of how I felt. Like, this was a hard movie for me to sit at the edge of my seat eating popcorn going, what's the next thing going to be? What are we doing next? You know, it was more like it was over, and I'm like, you know, like I saw Schindler's List in the movies. I'm not afraid to go see movies with a lot of feeling, and you know, I'm sure Dunkirk will be a lot of the same stuff. But like, I go into those movies knowing what it is I'm about to see, and I'm prepared for it. This I was not necessarily prepared for, and you know, and that's so. Like I said, it reminded me of the whole Eddie Izzard. You know, this is not the kind of movie you can eat popcorn to. This is the kind of movie that, you know, you leave a little depressed when it's over. And, you know, for some people, that's not even why you go to the movies. You go to be entertained, not depressed.
Yeah. I think if there's a fault here in that sense, it's in the marketing, which highlighted the action and basically ignored the fact that we're getting the conclusion of a character piece, and a very interesting character piece at that. But
I'm even okay with the title, War for the Planet of the Apes, even though there's no real war going on, but you still have the essence of what war does to people and how it changes them and everything else. So I'm okay with that element of it, but right, it does send the wrong signals when you're doing a character think piece.
All right, so I'll go ahead and do the plot synopsis, assuming everything is still going okay. So I'm now going to be like checking my internet box like every 20 seconds to make sure nothing's fallen off again.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
So if I'm distracted this week, it's because Comcast has renewed my paranoia after like 4 months of no issues. So thanks, Comcast.
Right, we're changing the name of the show to, instead of Damn You Hollywood, is What's Distracting Winfree.
No, that's a very different show. All right. We open with a brief summation of the past two films and are informed that this one takes place quite a couple of years after the close of the previous film, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And there's been a ongoing war during that period of time. We get a military assault on the apes' home, which goes badly for all parties. Caesar, the ape in charge, winds up letting a few of the humans go free because he wants to prove that they're not monsters and potentially foster a peace with the insane colonel. This goes badly as they are ambushed later in the evening after one of their own betrayed them. Woody Harrelson's Colonel McCullough, actually, although he's never identified by name in the film outside of the name on his fatigues, because they clearly want you to see him and think of Colonel Kurtz, which is fine. It's deliberate, and I'm okay with it. Woody Harrelson shows up, thinks he kills Caesar, actually kills his oldest son and his wife, because they all look the same to me, I suppose he could have said. He escapes. Caesar is now driven to the point of anger and depression and insanity and vengeance. He sends all the apes off to find a new home on the other side of the desert. This would be the desert, I forget which one specifically, but if they were based around San Francisco, there's a pretty desolate patch not too far east of that area that leads into more lush. You get over the mountains, especially you get over I think it's the Sierra Nevadas, Sierra Vistas that are right around there. Sierra Vistas in Arizona. So I just had to overhear a couple of morons saying, there's nothing that looks like that in all of California, and I wanted to throw stuff at them. Like, no, morons. Anyway, so most of the apes head off. Caesar and a few trusted friends, Maurice, the orangutan, Rocket, and a gorilla that we're introduced to essentially for the first time in this movie. At least to the best of my recollection. Their plan is to divert the soldiers' attention. They're going to engage in some guerrilla warfare, pun fully intended, and feel free to throw stuff at me. Anyway, the point being they're going to distract them so the rest of the apes are free to go on to their new home, and Caesar wants to violently murder Woody Harrelson, which is fine. Like you do. I mean, I think everybody has at one point or another. They encounter an old and slightly crazy monkey. Chimp. He's a chimp. Those are apes. Not all monkeys are apes. Not all monkeys are apes, I think is the way that goes. Played by Steve Zahn, who injects some much-needed comedy into this film. I need to compliment him when we get to that. They also find a small girl who is unable to speak. And as they start tracking down the soldiers, they find a few more humans that have bled from the nose, have lost the ability to speak. Something's going on here. We find out what a little bit later. They eventually stumble across the camp for the soldiers, find them preparing. They've been informed incorrectly that more soldiers are coming to meet up with them and have a final push to wipe out all the apes. It's not actually what's happening, but we'll get to that in a second. Caesar is captured. The gorilla dies. Caesar meets with Woody Harrelson, and one of the best scenes of the movie when they have their discussion. And Woody Harrelson explains what's been going on. The virus that wiped out the mutation that occurred, and this is way back, but for those of you who saw Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, James Franco was trying to develop a cure for Alzheimer's, but like all things James Franco did, it was terrible, and it wound up mutating and trying to wipe out humanity, because James Franco is terrible. Don't know if I've said that enough on this podcast. But he is. He really is. Anyway, this thing had mutated, and that was into what they called the simian flu, which is what wiped out the vast majority of humanity, leading to the world we found in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Now there's some speculation, never actually confirmed, but because we have no opposing point of view, it's presented as what's happening in the movie. It's mutated again. Now instead of actually killing people, it's just having essentially the reverse effect of what it was supposed to do in terms of combating Alzheimer's. It is removing the higher brain functions from humanity. They lose the ability to speak, elements of their reason. They are basically being turned into apes, for want of a better phrase. While we come to find out that there are actually apes beyond the group of Caesars that have developed the ability to speak, the ability to reason, form societies, so on and so forth. And Woody Harrelson is having none of this. He does not wish to see humanity toppled from its perch atop the food chain and reduced to cattle. We get a bunch of prison sequences, which are it's basic wartime prison fare if you've seen movies like that. And I'm going to assume all of you listening have seen one or two of them. But Caesar's trying to stand up for the prisoners. Because they're building a wall. They're trying to fortify the position because all the rest of the army thinks that Woody Harrelson is insane. He is. Doesn't make him wrong, but he's crazy. And they're coming to suppress him with extreme prejudice. And he wants to be prepared for that. So he's marshaled the apes that he captured. He captured all of Caesar's group, just randomly. Just happened to run across them as they were traversing, and now they're his slave labor force. Caesar wants them to be treated better, while a couple of his ape compadres are working on an escape plan. They utilize tunnels. The apes escape. Good old Ape Escape. Terrible game for the PlayStation. PlayStation 2, maybe. Anyway, they escape. As the humans lead their assault, Caesar is fatally wounded while ensuring that they can all escape and that the humans wipe each other out. He just barely, and the apes get out of the way of a big avalanche that's caused by the enormous explosion he sets off. The military forces that had shown up to combat Woody Harrelson are subsequently wiped out in the avalanche. The apes move on to their new home across the desert. And as they find their new location and everyone starts celebrating, Caesar slowly succumbs to his wounds as his good buddy Maurice tells him that his one remaining son will be told, because he's very young, will be informed who Caesar was, what he meant to the people, what he meant, to the ape community and what he did for all of them. And we fade out as Caesar's soul ascends metaphorically into the heavens. All right. I skipped over a few bits there that are finer details, but Mark, did I leave any out? Did I leave out any major plot points you want to touch on?
Yes, the girl's doll that she's carrying around she gives it to Caesar. The colonel picks it up, and then he succumbs to the illness, and there's a silent but great scene between Caesar and the colonel as he's mute and suffering and is sort of goading Caesar to kill him, and Caesar is there to kill him. He realizes that he does not want to sink to that level. He does not want to murder a suffering man, even with everything that's happened to him. And so he leaves the gun, and Woody Harrelson commits suicide.
Yeah, that was I apologize for leaving that out. All right. We've done a little bit about some of our expectations and where we wanted to, some of our brief thoughts. But so, Mark, as I say, pretty much every week when we do this, where do you want to start with this? What really do you feel compelled to talk about beyond, some of the marketing and you being a little bit surprised by the end product versus what you were necessarily sold on?
Well, let's talk about what we saw. What I saw was, say what you will about whether or not you were entertained. This movie looks amazing. The CGI apes and gorillas look fantastic. And I just watched twice, as a matter of fact, the Tim Burton one where everyone's wearing costumes that took like 4 hours to apply or whatever. And, granted, that was I think back in like 2001 or some shit like that. So we're talking like 16 years ago.
It was terrible and nothing could save it. That movie is awful.
It really is. But
irredeemably awful.
The point of me bringing that up was, when you look at the apes in that movie in their costumes compared to the CGI, what's the term for what they're doing?
Motion capture?
The motion capture, it's almost incomparable. In motion capture, look, it looked good years ago when they had Andy Serkis as Gollum. It looks even better now. I mean, if you didn't know anything about motion capture, you could convince somebody, maybe who's a little dim, that those are real apes, that they trained to act. I mean, it looks that real. But not just the motion capture, the landscapes, even a snowy, wintry army camp that eventually has an avalanche, burying everything in sight, still looks fantastic. There's a grimness to it. You talked about some of the influences of the movie. And right in the first scene, you see marching soldiers, and there's a close-up of the helmet, and it says Monkey Killer. And it reminded me of, like, Full Metal Jacket and Platoon. Yeah, right off the bat. So there's a lot of odes in this movie, and they resonate. I think they did a great job of capturing the essence that, that war is hell. And even in a war for survival, it will make men do horrible, horrible things. And one truly has to try to hang on to one's own humanity or, apeness, if you will. One's own soul, if we're not being speciesist about it. And that's all in there. That's all evident. And so a lot of credit to the filmmakers for making a beautiful-looking, resonant film. the performances across the board, whether it be the motion capture actors or the human ones, and really it's Woody Harrelson holding up the human side. There's like one or two other ones that have some stuff to do, but they could have been henchmen 1 and 2 for all I cared. Woody Harrelson does a great job, and I don't remember the character's name from Apocalypse Now, but
Kurtz.
he's
Colonel Kurtz.
Yeah, he does a great job as Colonel Kurtz in this movie. He's a loon, but like any good villain, you get where he's coming from. He says it right in the movie. He's like, you'll replace us, and I can't let that happen. Well, that's as good as any reason to do what he's doing. And he knows that there's this human army coming down from the north that's going to wipe them out. And so, he's doing what he feels like he needs to do, even if, it's wrong or not the right thing or insane. He feels like it's the right thing to do to save his soldiers that have sworn loyalty to him. So, he does a great job. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie is when him and Caesar are face-to-face that first time. And he's talking about how the simian flu killed his son, and he's not going to let the apes take over the world. And
well, technically Caesar, he killed his son.
But... and, he's not going to let the apes win. And if roles were reversed, Caesar would do the exact same thing. And then the other part of it, I didn't mean to kill your wife and son. That's just the way war works. It's not personal. And even when he's chewing the scenery just a little bit, it's like, this isn't personal. You're so emotional, what you see in the trailers. It still works in the scene. And even though he's a villain, your heart almost breaks for him at the end when he's hoisted by his own petard because he picks up the doll, and it's the doll that transmits the simian flu. So it's a near perfectly made movie. And if you're a completist, it's definitely worth watching. And if you own the first two movies, it's definitely worth owning. My biggest problem with it, and there's something I want to check here, because this, I believe, is 20th Century Fox. There's a movie coming out in October about a weather satellite that goes kaflooey, and it's destruction porn. And it looks awesome for those of us who love stupid destruction porn movies.
And I do. I really do.
It's called Geostorm. And it's Warner Brothers. Fuck a duck. Because I wish these had been in the same production house. Because honestly, they need to be swapped. This should have come out, War for the Planet of the Apes should have come out in October when Geostorm is coming out, and Geostorm should have come out in July because it just fits better.
Geostorm would have no chance of making any money if it came out in July. None. Nobody would see that. Nobody would see it. Nobody's going to see it in October.
What? Summer is the season of destruction porn. Why do you say such things?
Because it's awful. And look,
wait a minute now. Have you seen Transformers, which is currently the number 9th film in the world?
Yeah, I have. And here's the thing. Transformers has a worldwide audience to pull from. So the fact that Transformers was awful, everyone knows it's awful, and it's going to do maybe half of expectations. Probably less than that.
I have to cut you off and I have to educate you here. The foreign audiences gravitate, and this has been proven. It's why the Transformers movies have done so well. The foreign audiences gravitate to things that are big and epic and explosion-y, and you're not reliant on dialogue.
I know.
And culture.
I'm well aware of all that. I'm saying in spite of all that.
That's all Geostorm is. That's all Geostorm is. It's literally the Earth tearing itself apart. In
spite of all that, The only prayer Geostorm has to make money is that there is nothing else out that people would see instead.
Well, there isn't that in October, but at least that week.
If this had come out, if Geostorm had come out on Friday, it would have opened at number 3. Spider-Man would have held on to number 1. Easily.
Maybe in America.
Easily. Worldwide.
But in China, India, it absolutely would have done amazing.
Even there.
All right. We're arguing over an irrelevant point. It's Warner Brothers and Fox. It's not happening. My only point of even bringing that up is I don't think War for the Planet of the Apes is a good summer movie. I think it's a great Oscar movie. I think it's a great science fiction movie. I think it's a great think piece on war. I don't think it's a good fit for the summer blockbusters. And I guess the counter argument to that would be, why? You can't have a movie that makes you think in the summer? And the answer is no. No, you can't.
Well, in Radulich land, you can't.
That's not the way the summer... Hey, I've only had years of watching summer blockbusters to look back at. And now there have been some great ones, and there have been some ones that weren't, the stupidest things ever written. I don't think, the deep think pieces have been a great big summer draw. I think they belong closer to Oscar season.
And yet, this one's making a lot of money.
Yeah, it's made $100 million. Cool your pits.
It knocked Spider-Man off of its perch, which I don't think either of us were necessarily sure it was going to do.
Yeah, Spider-Man's made $427 million. This thing's barely over $100 million. Calm the fuck down. Okay?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Makes it into the top 10, when it makes it into the top 10, you can tweak my nipples and you can tell me, oh, look, it's making money, Radulich. You don't know what you're talking about. Until then, no. I'm right. Geostorm. July. Tons of money. Millions and millions of dollars.
No. Again, Geostorm is terrible. It is so bad that its only prayer for drawing an audience is, there's nothing else.
Yep, and you and me are going to review it in October.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are. It's on the calendar. It's been on the calendar
That was
all
not
year.
on the calendar.
Yes, it is.
When did you add that?
It's been on the calendar all year.
No, it was on the
Right
calendar when it was
Blade
going to
Runner.
come out in February.
There's
When it got
nothing
bumped to
else
October, I never signed off on that movie being added to the schedule.
Let me clue you in on how the world works. Tough shit, we're reviewing it.
You are going to regret this decision.
All right, let's focus on this review and not. I thought I'd get a harder fight out of you for Jumanji. Oh no, The Rock's in Jumanji, so you won't fight me as hard.
Are you seriously adding Jumanji?
Jumanji's always been on the list. Where have you been? I've emailed you.
No. Jumanji was when they moved that thing's release date to the week after Star Wars. I thought we were just like saying, nah, screw it.
No, I just moved it.
Okay. Damn it.
Since you seem to have lost the list here, here's the list. Dunkirk, The Dark Tower, The Inhumans, assuming you can see it somewhere. If not, we may have to scrub that one, but only because you live in the fucking sticks where there's no IMAX theaters. It, Blade Runner 2, which is now Blade Runner 2049 or some shit, Geostorm, Jigsaw, which was formerly Saw Legacy, Ragnarok, Justice League, Coco, Star Wars, The Last Jedi, and Jumanji. That's it for the whole year.
I've
had the same list on my computer all year. Sorry.
I was not updated after Geostorm and Jumanji had their release dates shuffled.
So unless... Why are we having this discussion now? Unless a movie ends up moving to, like let's say, for example, like Deadpool, which currently there's nothing else on at the same time as Deadpool next year. Let's pretend for a moment Deadpool moves to the same time as something else we're reviewing. Then we may have to talk about it, and figure out if we're going to do like we're going to do. I know later in the year, X-Men: Dark Phoenix and Mulan are opening on the same weekend because God hates me. So we're going to do 2 reviews that week. We're just going to, we'll do a Tuesday and a Thursday review. But most of the time, if it moves to something that I had on the schedule, I usually scrub something. If it just moves to a different date, then I keep it on the calendar. But if it
I can't tell you how much I was looking forward to never seeing Jumanji.
Okay. Well, sorry. Merry Christmas.
You just ruined my whole freaking week. You know that? Do you have any idea? Any idea?
Oh my God! All right, hang on. Let me tell you what's what in the butt here. All right, list of movies 2017.
I know what
we're doing right
I'm
here.
well aware of that. I just thought we were just like taking those weeks off as a. Never mind.
Nope.
Never mind. I'm gonna get this thing back on track. Tell
hang
you
on.
what.
No. Hang on. We need to talk about this now because
all right.
We're not doing anything the first week of December. It's the Disaster Artist, Wonder Wheel, and Pickings. Okay, I don't remember any of these. Okay. December 8th is The Shape of Water, which is a Fox Searchlight with.
It's nothing.
Okay. And then we have Star Wars, The Last Jedi, and Ferdinand, December 15th. Okay, so that's an example of we're not going to review Ferdinand. We're going to just do Star Wars. And that's that. And they moved Jumanji to December 20th, which is 2 days before the 9 other movies that are opening that weekend, which are Pitch Perfect, Downsizing, Bastards, The Current War, and The Papers. So, yes, we're reviewing
thought that was
Jumanji.
a good idea?
Hey, look, this could be worse. I could be making you review Pitch Perfect 3.
I absolutely would not. I'll tell you straight up, would not.
Now, the one that I did scratch from it just because we just ran out of time and I didn't want to do it, and it's one of those deals where I'll just wait for it to come on video or I'll go see it and not have to worry about reviewing it, and that's The Greatest Showman. That's opening Christmas Day. But don't worry, we're taking all of January off. God, you should see the dumpster fire that is January. Before we get back on track, let me just read you what's coming out in January so far and why we're not reviewing anything until like mid-February. Insidious, Chapter 4, White Boy Rick, Paddington 2, The Commuter, Horse Soldiers, Den of Thieves, Extinction, Optic Justice, Thunder Squad, which is an animated movie, and Midnight Sun. See, you get all of January to recover from Jumanji. Quit your bitching.
You know, I ought to find something in January to make you watch, because I imagine those are the types of movies that would bother you more than they'd bother me.
What? You want to make me watch Insidious?
Only if you agree to watch the other 3 first.
Nope.
Wuss.
Hey, there's the third 50 Shades movie is coming out in February, along with The Maze Runner and Peter Rabbit.
Those are all terrible
movies. Yeah, so we don't. I mean, I think they said that one of the untitled DC movies is opening in February. I'll believe it when I see it. But Black Panther opens February 16th. That's what we're starting the year with.
Oh, so Marvel's trying to line that up with Black History Month, eh? Synergy.
Goddamn right. And then Pacific Rim is the following week.
All right.
You want to talk about?
I was so happy
talk about
not
the movie
to have
at
to
hand
watch
now?
either of those movies. You don't know. You can't understand how happy I was. All right. Anyway, back on track here.
Next year, we also have the untitled Transformers Bumblebee spinoff we have to talk about, which is the same week as Ocean's 8, which is the all-chick Ocean's movie. But again, I'm only going to make you review
these are
one
good
of
ideas?
I'm only going to make you review one of those, and that's Bumblebee. I got a whole week of shit planned for Bumblebee. So, back on.
I will have to, vomit to purge myself after that.
I love my life.
I'm going to find a way to make you pay for those movies. I don't know how, but I'm going to think of something.
Want to review Mamma Mia? Here we go again. It's the same week as Alita Battle Angel.
You're not helping.
Okay. I'm now falling into a hole of wanting to keep doing this. Please continue. Please cut me off.
No. Go ahead, keep hanging yourself. This is amusing.
Oh wait, they moved Mulan. Now, oh thank God. I need to fix the calendar, but they moved Mulan, and instead they're doing the Nutcracker in the Four Realms the same week as X-Men Dark Phoenix. Hot diggity.
Well, that'll save us some effort. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the movie we're talking about. We're talking about a good movie. You had to bring me down with that cinematic sputum.
You're welcome.
Ugh. Look, I said this after Rise of Planet of the Apes. Or Dawn. I said it after Dawn. Dawn's the second one. Andy Serkis should get an Oscar nomination. He should have for that movie. I'm not sure he should have won. I'd have to double check what the other competition was that year. But I mean, you and I talked at length about the acting that went into his portrayal of Caesar for that movie. Well, I mean, it's more of the same, and I don't mean that as a negative or a stagnation thing. He's still excellent. I mean, the physical acting that goes into believably walking like a chimp, the facial acting, and there just has to be some massive disconnect with the Academy in the sense that they think if you are motion captured that your face doesn't play, like that's all done via computers. Further proof that no one in Hollywood knows how computers actually work, mind you, but that's the only reasoning I can come up with. There is some exceptional acting done by Andy Serkis in this movie. I mean, you mentioned it before. The scene where he finally is like deciding whether or not he's going to actually kill Woody Harrelson. It's a brilliantly acted scene. There's not a line of dialogue. It's all in their faces. And he and Harrelson just do a magnificent job. He really should get some serious recognition for his acting ability that's on display across all three of these movies, mostly the last two, because the first one, while good, hadn't quite found itself. You mentioned the quality of the visuals. Yeah. The visuals are so good, I'm never quite sure in this movie what is CGI'd and what is set piece. Because I know a lot of it was just set pieces. They found that location in, California or wherever they shot. Where did they shoot? I have to know this. Oh, Vancouver. Yeah. They found they found places that looks like that. And some of it is just actual greenery and backdrop, and some of it is stuff that they had to do digitally. And generally speaking, you can't tell the difference. It's amazing. It really is. Woody Harrelson's acting is fine, good to great. He even, like you said, even when he chews a little bit of scenery, there's just enough. It fits in with the character just enough to stop it from being distracting or to break your immersion. The only quasi-negative thing I have to say about this, and there's reasons why they went this direction in terms of both narrative and overarching themes. One of the things I really, really loved about Rise of the Planet of the Apes, or Dawn, excuse me, it's Dawn. King Dawn, second one. Dawn should be first, but semantics aside. I loved the depth of characters that you got, not just from each actor, but that you got across the board. You had Koba, who was so embittered and hateful that he couldn't step aside from it. Caesar trying to keep peace and dealing with his own prejudices more for apes than against humans. You had a couple of the humans who were trying to establish some kind of working relationship, and then you had some that were too terrified by the circumstance to think rationally and wound up calling the military. And they all made sense. You got this broad spectrum of individual characters who, while you rooted for some and not for others, all represented legitimate perspectives. In this instance, you don't get nearly as much of that. It's a lot more the casting of the apes as heroes and the humans as villains. Now, that's a bit broad, I'm well aware. Caesar's struggle for, his own humanity, for want of a better phrase, is very compelling. And I don't mean to say that it isn't, but there's just a little bit of slight simplicity to the broader strokes of this. The details are tremendous, and I don't mean to suggest otherwise. But I would have really liked a human character that you didn't want to die, and the little girl doesn't count. But some of that's just me, I think. I mean, beyond that, again, it's a relatively minor quibble. Beyond that, I have no real complaints. Again, it looks great. It's well acted. The action when it comes is there's only two. I mean, you could be generous and say three, but again, that's generous. Real action sequences, but they're great. They're great when they do show up. Whether you want more or less of that relative to the character study is purely down to personal preference, because there's nothing wrong with them technically. This is a tremendous film. I was very hyped for this movie. I got more character than I expected, but I also expected a fair amount of character, because that's just kind of the way these movies are. They set up so that the action means something.
Can we,
even when it's somewhat limited in terms of quantity of action relative to other parts of the movie.
Can we talk about the avalanche for just a minute? Because that's the one part of the movie I had a real problem with. And I mean, I have a problem from the craft point of view. I feel like it cheapened the story. This is a story about how the Planet of the Apes came to be the Planet of the Apes. The mutation of the simian flu is what renders the humans to be what they are when Charlton Heston lands on the planet and everything else. And that's all well and good. And, you can why is the Statue of Liberty buried up to her face in sand and all that? You could absolutely say global warming or whatever. There's all kinds of just changes in the condition of the earth make that so. Okay, so that's all well and good. But I think my problem with the avalanche in terms of I think it weakened the story. You're a writer, as I said before in one of our recent shows, you're writing the story. You can make whatever you want happen. Why would you choose, instead of the apes in defense of their lives destroying the army, or the apes are the ones that really cause the avalanche? And if that's what you got from this film, I guess I'm going to walk some of this back, but I didn't get the sense that the apes caused the avalanche purposefully. You can make the argument it was done sort of accidentally with all of the explosions going on. But
it was caused specifically by that giant explosion, but the intent was not to release an avalanche.
But that's my point. I feel like there's a battle going on for the fate of the Earth between apes and humans, and God just kind of throws an avalanche at the humans and says, "Okay," but by default. It's like an injury TKO in MMA. You didn't really win. The other guy got injured, but you win by default because the guy can't continue. It's like, it doesn't come across as strong to me. I think a stronger way of doing it would have been the apes, just a small little thing of Caesar looking up, seeing the snow kind of falling, looking down, looking up, looking down, and going, I know what I must do. And he's like, get out of here, the whole place is going to go. And he blows up the tanker, and that causes the avalanche. And then at least you can say, okay, the apes won the day in a last-ditch blow-up the Death Star effort against the humans. It all just kind of happens accidentally, and I don't find that to be strong storytelling. You think I'm off my rocker here, or you agree, or do you not care?
I have a slightly different perspective. I understand where you're coming from. We have a mutual friend, Gavin Napier, who voiced a few, I think, somewhat legitimate complaints with the movie in terms of thematic structure. His big complaint was you're telling a story about the extinction of humanity and you cast humans as the villains. And there's a valid point there, don't get me wrong. But and he followed it up with, what a bunch of self-loathing pricks must live in Hollywood, that type of thing. Which is also something
well, he ain't
valid.
wrong. I was going to say,
valid.
He ain't far off.
And I think that part of what they're trying to tell with this story is, as much as I dislike humanity as a general rule and have for 15 years or so.
Goodness gracious.
And so what I think they're trying to get across here is more, and this was very clear to me thematically again and symbolically during that final battle, man is just wiping itself out. And because man is inherently destructive and wants to destroy things, it wipes itself out more than anything else, and the apes are just there to inherit. So thematically, again, within the story, again, if you're going with the overall theme of man has lost the right and the ability to exist at the top of the food chain, them essentially destroying themselves, or, if you want to take a slightly more religious bent on it, God half decreeing that, no, we're done with you. And it's time to see what happens if we go this other direction. I thought it was very fitting in a lot of ways.
Sorry. It just reminds me of a Bill Cosby thing, and then God lost his patience and threw everybody out of paradise. That's it. Whoop, everybody out of the pool. Let's go.
Again, I see your point. I have a different perspective on it in this particular instance. I don't think you're wrong.
But the story didn't necessarily focus entirely on the humans destroying themselves. The focus of the second movie was on the survival, was on a conflict between the apes and the humans. So I feel like to end the story on a strong note, you have to have one of those two causing the end of the other. And I feel like it's we don't want people to root against the apes, so it's like in wrestling. Everybody drink. Take a drink, everyone. Where it's instead of there being a pinfall or a submission, you got to count out victory. The heel just sort of gets himself counted out and walks away. Oh, that's not very strong at all. Or the old dusty finish, where it's just something that takes away, I think, from the strength of your cast of characters, and then it just and it's just you win by dumb luck. Okay, well, that's not good storytelling.
I got less dumb luck and more like, again, the final, the straw that broke the camel's back. Humans have been trying to wipe each other out for so long, and we're just finally able to do it.
But that's a different story, is my point.
And again, if they had ended the second movie on essentially the same note, again, the randomness of the universe affecting it, I think that would be I would agree with you almost wholeheartedly. In this instance, the story is much more about Caesar attempting to overcome his personal demons, and again, man's inhumanity to man under any circumstances.
And because of escaping, why even to show the ape? In other words, then a better way to have done that would have been as the humans are blowing each other up, the apes just get out. And they get away, and you never really know what happens. You figure at some point the humans are going to wipe each other out either by gunshot or by simian flu, but it's left up in the air because the story is Moses leading his people out of bondage. Why even bother with the avalanche then?
I don't know. Again, look, are there minor things they could look? There are minor things they could have tweaked, sure. At the same time, I don't care that much because I don't feel it's a mega.
It comes across as the rebels running through the Carillion cruiser, handing the plans to Princess Leia. Oh, good, we're all lined up with the fucking next movie now. We are directly connected. You know, it's like we had to show the humans being buried in the snow because it lines us up with the next Planet of the Apes. Okay, you didn't have to do that if that's not the story you're telling.
Well, in this instance, it also facilitates the apes escaping, whereas otherwise there's this giant army right there that has been expressly stated will try to kill all the apes.
Yeah, but they could have still gotten away without the army seeing them if they were otherwise engaged. You know, the monkeys could have put on mustaches and hats and snuck away. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, because, you know, monkeys in human face, to close this out, wouldn't have been a weak ending.
They're all wearing glasses and mustaches.
Top hats and monocles.
I don't care that you're not laughing. I'm cracking myself up.
Maybe one of them can speak in a bad Elvis impression.
They all have like masks on like a paint stick, just kind of holding it in front of their face. We're all human. I'm a human. You're a human. We're all human. Go. They're all kind of walking sideways out of the base. And the humans kind of look at them and go, "Are those apes? No, they're clearly human. Can't you see their face?" Would have ended the movie on a lighter note.
This is why you don't make movies, all right? Just for the record.
Because you know that would have been the end of the movie had I been there, had I been producing.
Yeah. Again, look, every time we try to tell people that, no, you're all idiots, then for every one of those, there's at least one of these where we lose all credibility when it comes to pointing out the flaws in film craft. By suggesting that the apes make their escape from cages with hand-drawn masks, baseball caps, and terrible accents.
Oh, one of them has to be wearing glasses and a fake mustache.
The Groucho glasses, yeah, with the nose. With the nose.
Right, with the nose. Oh, Hollywood, why won't you give me a job?
I thought we just covered that.
We're ready to talk about the money now.
Hang on, there's a couple of other things I wanted to touch on. Oh, yeah, Steve Zahn. I have to give a lot of credit to. This movie needed some comedic relief, more so than the others. And there's a bit in the others here and there. But the others are more, again, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was very much an ensemble film. There's multiple characters that have interesting things going on that you can watch and you can bounce to and you can keep things moving and you can keep a specific pace. And you broke it up with a few really good action sequences. This one you don't have as much of that, so it really needed the levity that Steve Zahn's old monkey brought to it. The old chimp that they find, in the ski lodge, because he's hilarious. And
his name is Bad Ape. The character's name is Bad Ape.
Okay, and this movie needed, in the worst way, his comedic sensibilities, because they structured his comedy in appropriate positions. He's not cracking wise or, having a joke when there's something serious or intense going on, but during some of the downtime or the preparatory period, you're able to get some laughs and some levity out of him, because otherwise this is this is still a relatively somewhat depressed movie. And you really did need him to kind of break that up and accent the seriousness by having those moments of levity. So good for him. A lot of credit to him. I loved the music for this movie. The little theme that they have for, I think, the girl, or any time like Caesar really has those kind of moments of finding his own humanity. It's a really nice little chime, and I think they used it in I think they used that way back in the first movie. I forget exactly. You'll have to forgive me. I haven't seen the first one in a while because I hate James Franco. But the music is really enjoyable. Again, the relatively minor hiccups that occur here and there do not significantly in any way really detract from this movie. This is a great movie. And it should get some serious awards when that particular time comes around. If nothing else, the visuals. Because it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful to look at. And I think that was the last bit I had. So on that note, Mark, go ahead. Let's talk about the money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar.
All right. War for the Planet Apes was the number one movie of the weekend. It knocked off Spider-Man on a $150 million budget. Its current worldwide total is $106 million.
150.
Making what?
It's 150 million worldwide.
Nope, I got 100. According to Box Office Mojo, I got 100.
Box
million.
Office Mojo is outdated.
It's already all right. So it made an extra $50 million that Box Office Mojo hasn't accounted for yet.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it'll be updated then tomorrow. As far as where we are worldwide, Beauty and the Beast still number one. That's domestic. God damn it.
Look, the top three haven't changed.
Nope. Beauty and the Beast, Fate of the Furious, Guardians. Wonder Woman is settling in the 700 million range. Right behind it is Pirates. Despicable Me has shot up to number 6 with 625 million. Behind it is Logan, then Kong, and the number 9th movie in the world at $517 million, Transformers: The Last Night.
It's still not making money.
Number 10 movie in the world is The Boss Baby. Climbing fast is Spider-Man at $472 million. And settling in under $400 million is The Mummy. Great start to that franchise.
Terrible decision. Who thought that was a good idea?
And sitting at number 35 right now, if you go by Box Office Mojo, is War for the Planet of the Apes. If you go by Robert's numbers, wherever he got them, it's about 31, 32, somewhere in there. Just ahead of Power Rangers and King Arthur, Legends of the Sword.
It's going to do much better than those when it's all said and done.
Well, it's not like the next couple of weeks have a tremendous amount of competition in terms of, garnering huge audiences. I mean, this coming week is Dunkirk. That'll bring in some people, but we're not talking. But again, that'll bring in Chris Nolan fans and people who like historical, war pictures and whatnot. But it was an odd time to release that movie. I don't know why that one didn't get a September release. Then Atomic Blonde and the Emoji Movie, which I've already spoken to my family about this. I am not seeing the Emoji Movie. If we go as a family, I will go see Atomic Blonde, and they can go see the Emoji Movie. I refuse. and then The Dark Tower, and then that's the end of the summer. So I just, in the interest of time, I don't really have a whole lot to add to this. You want to add anything?
Just that anyone who still sees Transformers deserves to be kicked in the crotch.
It's a lot of Chinese Chinamen you're kicking in the crotch there, pal.
Yeah, they don't need it. Also, this needs to be said about Transformers. The thing's made $500 million. It is not yet profitable. Its budget was hang on. Its budget was what? 260?
217 million.
Okay. When you factor in the ad campaign they put together for this thing, I guarantee you they spent over $100 million on advertising.
Yeah, I was going to say, this thing needed to make $1 billion, just like the last.
It really did. And it's not going to come close.
Nope. This thing is a fizzling. This was not a good year for Paramount. In terms of, I mean, like, this was their bet. This is what they were counting on. And I mean, like, their other, like this is a shit year for Paramount. Their number one movie that they were counting on was Transformers. And while it's at the top of the heap, it's not doing nearly as well as it needed to. Baywatch bombed. Triple X did okay. It was in the top 10 there for a while. And I know that because I used to tease Robert about it. Ghost in the Shell bombed. Monster Trucks they wrote off before it even entered before it entered a single theater. So, yeah, this is not a good year for Paramount.
Yeah, they were banking on Transformers, and the Transformers is a fizzling. Some movies they've got coming out. They've got a Daddy's Home sequel, which will much
probably
as I
do
hate
okay.
to say it, that'll probably do okay. It'll be profitable in and of itself.
Right, but it's not going to be $1 billion. So, yeah, the year is sort of over for Paramount. Everything else they've got coming out here is a small movie, which may or may not make money. But, I mean, that's not, this is what they were counting on. This is a bad year for Paramount. They are having difficulties.
They're going to be our
Next
big loser when we do our year-end wrap-up.
Mm.
Paramount's going to get the turkey.
Next year, they've got a Bumblebee thing. They've got Mission Impossible. They've got something called Amusement Park. They've got some stuff slated for 2018. But, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Paramount gets bought by a bigger studio, like Universal or something.
Yeah, all right. No, I think that's all I have for money. Just I'll say, be prepared if you want to go see this movie. It's not action-oriented, but it's a really good movie. I was really surprised when it turned into The Great Escape in the middle of it, which is fine because they did a good – I mean, it was great. That whole bit where they're trying to figure out how to escape from, the war camp or the POW camp is great. They do it really well.
Well, there's a handful of folks that disagree with you, so let's get to it.
Oh, joy. Where's my button? There you are.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, there are 4 reviewers, just about, my 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, that, without a doubt, will always offer up some old man, get off my lawn type opinion about a movie. Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal is definitely one of them. But I guess he either didn't see it or he liked it because he's not one of the rotten reviews. However, Roger Moore, who's brought us some real zingers in the past, has outdone himself. This is the one that I sent to you. We're going to start off with it. We're actually going to go a little out of order. Yeah, but I want to get this one out of the way. So Roger Moore of Movie Nation, perpetually with a stick up his butt, says, more glum and formulaic than deep. If I want to watch a celebration of America in decline, I just turn on Fox News. Dick.
Okay. You know, can I trade this guy? You see, there was an actor by the name of Roger Moore. He played James Bond. It was a pretty good Bond. One of the top 5, I think, pretty much universally. Good actor, really good actor. Died a few years ago. Very sad. Can we like kill this guy and get the actor back? Because I feel like that would be of greater benefit to society as a whole, to like sacrifice this jackass to some heathen god.
Sean Burns of.
Hang on. No, I got a thing.
Oh, sorry.
I got a thing here. Let me go.
Sorry.
This guy, okay. If he were some self-employed loser, it would be one thing. I'd still yell at him. I yell at Joe Moore. I yell at guys like Willie Waffles all the time because they suck. But they have the common decency to not drag down major publications with their excrement. And then there's this guy. This guy who just can't be asked to do anything other than what comes into his head before he's actually seen a movie. And now, without even the common courtesy of explaining his position, decides to liken this film to a major news outlet. And because I know my audience is of the liberal bent, I will mock Fox News. This will get a few chortles out of people, and even if they don't agree with my assessment, I'll have endeared myself to the ever so important base of my website. You are a charlatan without a shred of ethical integrity. The fact that you are allowed to give opinion as a means of... this is how you provide for yourself. You can't be this bad at any other job. You can't be a truck driver and drop off your load at the wrong store. You can't be a teller and hand people money out of the till. You can't be a crossing guard and let kids get hit by a... This is how bad you are at your job.
Can I do one?
Yes.
You can't be a teacher and sleep with your students. Huh?
Well, you can, but...
It ends in prison. I know that because we just imprisoned someone.
Okay, here's another one. You can't do Mark's job processing people at a prison intake and let the suicidal guy have free reign of his shoelaces.
Yeah.
There's a method.
That's a bad thing.
There are professional standards here. And somehow this asshat gets to skate by under what the umbrella of, well, it's criticism, therefore it's subjective. No, that is not how this works. If you want to say, I don't like depressing movies, fine. Say you don't like depressing movies. I can respect that. We can all respect that. And even reviewing this one through that particular prism is not a bad thing. By all means. I have to see tons of terrible action movies that I don't like. And I don't mind telling Mark and all you and any poor bastard in my house who happens to be here at the time and has to overhear this, that I don't like those movies. You are going to get my analysis of that through the lens of Robert doesn't like stupid action movies. Just the same way you're going to get Mark's perspective of Mark does like stupid action movies. And fortunately, we both have the professional and personal integrity to check a bit of that at the door and actually just talk about the frickin' craft of the movie rather than spout off just, I hated this. You're going to get I hated this or I loved this. Sure, you're not here just for objectivity. You're here for what Mark and I bring as individuals. And you're there for what Roger Moore brings as an individual. That's okay, but A, check some of that at the door, and B, don't use your personal biases as the sole justification for your review of a piece of art. Again, any other field where there are practices and standards, you would not have a job. You hack. Somebody find this guy. You know what? Since he doesn't understand film, let's reference a classic scene from a classic piece of cinema, shall we? I want you all to take a bar of soap, wrap it in a towel, find this guy, and smash him in the kidneys with it. This is not the type of person that deserves to be paid for what he does. This is not the type of person I'm entirely convinced is sapient enough to feed himself. Okay, let's move on.
Well, if you like that one, you're going to love this one. Sean Burns of Splice Personality. Personally, I found it all a bit distasteful and more than a little unpleasant. Cool shout-outs to Schindler's List, though, bro. Not joking. He actually added bro there.
Okay. Let's start with this. Let's just start with this. If you write bro, okay? Well, let me be clear about this. If somewhere inside your personal vocabulary you believe it is okay to type out bro in anything other than a quotation of something someone else said, you should have one of your hands slammed in a door. Because this is apparently the only way you morons will learn, is through physical consequence. Second of all, you are some kind of uneducated troglodyte. You are utterly lacking in culture if the only... First of all, shout out. I hate that word. I really do. But I understand it's entered the cultural lexicon. But even though it has, can we limit it to areas where people are actually speaking rather than having the ability to type something out, revise, submit it to another human in theory, have them look at it, revise, and then put out a finished product? So first of all, you've now committed two cardinal sins that speak very, very poorly of your intelligence. Then, adding on top of that, the only cinematic homage you got out of that was Schindler's List. I mean, come on! Mark and I referenced half a dozen movies that this thing touched on. And somehow that was the only one you got. I imagine that's the only one of those that you've actually seen. And you probably didn't even sit through it. You'd find Schindler's List a tad glum and not, depressing and not worth your time to watch. You stupid son of a bitch.
You done?
Yeah, I'm that
Can
guy.
I do another one? All right. Well, if you love that one, if you like that one, you'll love the next one. Christy Putko of Comic Book Review, I believe CBR stands for, seamlessly blending human actors with CGI creatures and a wealth of visual affected violence. The film delivers awe-inspiring action. So why was I so bored?
Okay. Well, I think CBR is Comic Book Resources, first of all, just as a housekeeping note, which is a website that has gone downhill dramatically over the last 2.5 years. All right? So your whole site has become shoddy. All right? Be very clear about that. You have devolved into hot takes. Good job. All right. Why were you bored? Because your brain can't actually process acting. Because those long stretches when you are watching Caesar struggle with himself, when you're listening to Woody Harrelson explain what brought him to the brink of madness, when Caesar has to deal with, no, I really want to kill this guy and I don't care about the consequences, or he's literally haunted by the ghosts of past decisions and the darkness that lives within his own heart. I mean, you can't process that on anything approaching an emotional level. You probably gave a favorable review to Transformers because, well, at least you weren't bored.
It only gets worse.
No, there's been
Adam's
a steady
tweeting
decline. I can see the grade you're slipping down for these.
Adam's tweeting of the arts desk, where Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was a vaguely plausible parable about the dangers of scientists messing with nature. This one doesn't have an original thought about anything.
First of all, no. All right? Let's start here, okay? The parable about Dawn of the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was not about man messing with nature. I'm not entirely sure how you got that. The only conclusion I can come to is that you heard Woody Harrelson talk about it in this movie and therefore latched onto the concept. Second, let's discuss originality. First of all, since you brought up man messing with nature, that's not unique. That was not unique to Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So you are like demonstrably wrong here. Second, no, there's not a whole lot unique about man's inhumanity to man, which is what this movie deals with. This is a war movie, more in the sense, more in the vein of Saving Private Ryan, or Full Metal Jacket, or Platoon, than it is any of the action-driven war pieces. This is about what humans and apes have done to each other, and what consequently they have lost and suffered along the way, not just externally but internally. This is not unique, but it's executed exceptionally well, and for some reason, there's always somebody like this. Well, it doesn't offer anything new. I can make a perfectly compelling argument that there hasn't been a new story put forth since Shakespeare. And half of what he did was adapted from the Thespian plays, or Theban plays. Theban. I'm going with Theban. I can't remember off the top of my head, so forgive me. Sophocles. Sophoclean plays, because he's the one who wrote most of them. The point being, the majority of stories, as such, the majority of unique ideas, were put forth before Christ. There's a lovely book about it called Hero with 1,000 Faces. Feel free to read it. Philistines. Ignoramus.
Last one. We're out of here for the night. Top critic, David Edelstein of New York Magazine and Vulture. War for the Planet of the Apes manages to be both alienating and sappy, and the biblical finale seems to come from a different universe altogether. It's an awesome, dull movie.
Mark, what do you think this individual would have said about The Godfather? Because we bring this up all the time, right? Like, these people who say, oh, it's dull. Do you not understand how film works? Do you not understand how narrative works? I mean, have you ever read a book over 400 pages?
He didn't like Wonder Woman.
Okay, this guy is clearly inept. This is a guy who has, like, spooned out the old paint chips as toppings for his ice cream. I mean...
He didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy. In fact, what he wrote was, the vibe is corporate and most depressing kind. It's not enough that you've paid for this product. You have to sit through commercials for the next one and the next and the next.
So he doesn't like franchises rather than actually talking about the movie he was paid to review. Fire this man. This is clearly not an individual who understands his job or how to execute it. Fire him. Are there no editors for the film section for these things anymore? I mean,
don't-
did the entire film critic community just fly under the radar as they were transitioning from print to digital media. And now there is no oversight. Whoever's in charge kind of assumes that, oh, they know what they're talking about, and someone's over them, but no one's actually over them. I mean,
the birth of an
willy-nilly, putting out whatever they want because whoever was immediately over them in the previous world was downsized or replaced, and now they can just do whatever they want. Is that what we've come to? That's the only thing I can come up with, that there's just a complete and total breakdown of quality control as it pertains to film criticism.
Yeah,
we're not talking about Willie Waffles writing for WillieWaffles.com here. This jackass writes for recognized outlets.
I gotta give you a positive one. So he gave X-Men Apocalypse a positive review, and what they pulled for Rotten Tomatoes was, I liked it a lot.
You proud of that line? I mean,
I think we're done
who
here.
pulls that? How dare you write that? I mean, sure. How about you are paid to write. How about you express yourself with something above the level of a 5-year-old, God forbid. Mark, your daughter has turned in more comprehensive and insightful reviews than this guy.
Yes, he has. This is amusing.
In another 9 months, Jonas will have surpassed him in all aspects of life.
This is what we're dealing with. This is what's out there.
This is why we do this segment, guys. It's not just because Mark wants to wind me up. It's because, I mean, we're not making this up. This is all verifiable. You all have access to the internet if you're listening to this. If you think Mark is pulling, he has sat down and like, okay, well, what would really tweak Winfree's nipples? I'll throw this at him. These are all documented. You can see how bad these people are at their job and why we are compelled to yell at them. Because these people are paid for this, and this is what the status of critical analysis has come to in this country, in the world. Sorry, this is a world problem. You have morons supplanting I like for is good, and you have those who decide that, well, this is the overarching narrative I would like to take, and this is my worldview, and I'm going to talk about it ad nauseum under the loose guise of reviewing a film.
I remember feeling sad at the end of the movie, and I remember going home, and talking to my wife. She spent the evening at Animal Kingdom with my 2 kids. They wanted to see what Pandora looks like at night. And I remember she got home, and she's like, how was your movie? And I'm like, you would have hated it. Like, every aspect of this movie you would have hated. And I said to her, I'm really struggling with how I feel about this movie because there's a lot of good, but for me personally, there's a lot of bad. And before Tuesday, I need to come up with a coherent way of talking about it that goes beyond my personal feelings. And I really wrestled with this. I remember before she got home, I watched a bunch of reviews on YouTube to kind of help me filter some of my thoughts. I wanted to hear what other people had to say. I was really struggling with this. And to the point of this whole segment, I feel like I put more effort into trying to get to a place where I could give this a good review, not good like it's a great movie, good as in an appropriate review. And I'm not getting paid for this, at least not by any institution. Meanwhile, this guy writes, this movie, I liked it. Good for you, sir. You're a peach. So, next week, we'll be joined by Andrew Graham, superfan, And I'm going to let him and Robert talk about Dunkirk while I make jokes in the background about monkeys and mustaches.
This is my life. What have I have wasted so much of it.
We actually got a whole week of military-related stuff going on here. So next week, we're going to do Sergeant Rock Between Hell and a Hard Place on source material. It'll be a live show. The aforementioned Dunkirk review. We'll be reviewing, despite much to Robert Cooper's chagrin, we're going to review In This Moment, Ritual. And then I'm going to be joined by Andrew Graham and his wife, and we're going to talk about Five Came Back on Netflix, the 3-episode series about some film folk who came back from the war. So, we got a lot of good stuff going on here next week. The week after that is all Charlize Theron all the time. We're going to review the graphic novel that inspired the film, The Coldest City. We're going to review Atomic Blonde here on this show. We were supposed to do Unleash the Archers back in June, but Robert had to work, so the show got nixed, and I was, I think, at U2 at the time. So I've rescheduled it to August 2nd, and then over on the On Trial, we're going to review The Italian Job from 2003. One, because I've never seen it, and I like a good heist movie. Two, Charlize Theron is in it. Get it? That's the connection, everybody.
It's not as good as the original, but it's still pretty good.
We're not deep thinkers here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. It's like, hey, Charlize Theron was in that. Let's review it. As for this
Again,
week,
the original's better, but I don't hate the remake.
Okay. Tomorrow night on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we're going to review the new Dying Fetus, Wrong One to Fuck With. And then the aforementioned On Trial, Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton version from 2001. It's shite. I'm prosecuting it.
All you have to
defend
do,
it somehow.
Mark, I can help you with your prosecution here. It's Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. That's really all you have to say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It's Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. You know what to do. May it please
really,
the court,
can
we get a directed verdict?
In all fairness, there was some potential there to do something interesting with it, and it
No.
just,
No, there wasn't.
As Jim, shut up, as Jim Cornette would say, it's flatter than a plate full of piss, and it looks like shit.
There is nothing good about that movie. Wait, I take that back. Hang on, I take that back. Tim Roth is pretty awesome, but he usually is.
Yeah. All right,
Other
go do
than
your plug.
that, all right, as Mark said, next week we'll be reviewing Dunkirk. Should be fun. Andrew Graham will be here. I believe next... no, we'll leave that. That's still up in the air. I don't want to make an announcement yet. Thank you to everyone who tuned in this last Sunday for the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. It went live a couple of hours after the conclusion of UFC Fight Night 113. Thanks to everyone who read either along with me live or the report after the fact in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. It was a night of fights. There were a few good finishes. That's all I got. And really, that's more than I expected. The heavyweights sucked. The light heavyweights were low level, but at least it ended quickly. And there were there were some good finishes. One or two fights didn't suck. It was better than I expected. This coming Saturday, I will have live coverage of UFC on Fox 25. Chris Weidman takes on Kelvin Gastelum in the main event. This event comes to us from Mark's old hometown.
Woo!
Uniondale. Yeah, not New York in the broad sense, but actual Uniondale.
Yep, Strong Island, baby. What?
There's two good fights on the main card. The main event, Weidman and Gastelum, should be interesting because Chris Weidman's probably going to lose. That wheel kick will haunt him for the rest of his life. And Jimmy Rivera versus Thomas Almeida is pretty good. The other two on the main card are meh. The rest of the card is kind of meh. There's 2 heavyweight fights, both of which will suck. Brian LaFleur's fighting. Lyman Good's back from a drug suspension. Follow along if you're so inclined. I appreciate it. Always appreciate views, comments. You guys keep me sane during some of these cards. Hopefully this one isn't that bad. I mean, I looked at this card and, this would make a darn good Ring of Combat show. That's about all I got. Ring of Combat, or what was the other one? The CSC or the CWC is the other regional promotion from the Northeast. So anyway, you can follow along there. And this coming Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be reviewing UFC on Fox 25 and previewing UFC 214. That's the big one, folks. The UFC is put a lot of time and energy into UFC 214. And to be fair, it's a pretty Jim Dandy card. The main events, the main card is pretty. There's a lot good about this card. We'll go into it in detail. So tune in for that. Always a good time. And with Mark's plugs out of the way, I'll see you all next week at a bare minimum. Thank you all for being here. Much love and appreciation to you guys for listening. Feel free to leave questions or comments on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network Facebook page or tweet angrily at Mark. He likes that.
At Mark Radulich. MarkRadulich.
Yes, please encourage him not to review Jumanji. It's going to be shit. We all know it's going to be shit. Why do we have to talk about it?
Because The Rock and Kevin Hart, that's why.
I love Dwayne Johnson. I really do, but no. And Kevin Hart is awful.
Is it Josh Gad or Jack Black? I think they're the same guy. Hang on.
It's Jack Black.
Is it Jack Black?
Yes. Neither of those options you presented were any good, by the way. Hey, look, it's Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart and Jack Black. And God, why? Just why?
Yep. You are correct. It is Jack Black. And Karen Gillian as Ruby Roundhouse. Ruby Roundhouse.
Be very clear about this, ladies and gentlemen. That movie will suck out loud.
It's going to be terrific.
Don't
we've got
see
a lot
it.
of great...
I beg of you, do not see this. Mark and I are going to suffer. No one else should have to.
Yep, we've got a lot of great movies before the end of this year concludes. You got Geostorm.
Awful.
We got Jumanji.
Awful.
It's gonna be a hell of a year.
All right. Anyway, until next time, for Mark Radulich, I'm Robert Winfree. Thank you for bearing with us through my internet sucking and our impromptu schedule meeting. Always appreciated. Until next time, please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.